Welcome to a new live stream. Finish First Financially, Goran Radanovic here. It seems like I'm on. Hopefully I am. Okay. So today, well, it's actually 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as opposed to 7 a.m., which is where I always want, where I actually want to start. Sorry, let me just, I'm trying to set up this article. Okay, here we go. Right, so okay. Welcome again. Apologies for not starting on time. I was busy with my vending machines. That's the business that I run. So I was took up actually more time than I thought it would. And I only got back now. So starting at 7:30. But it is what it is. Today, we're going to discuss the safest investments that I found. And yeah, I've written about it in my book, From Homeless to Debtless with Savings. And I thought that I would go through it now, discuss it. And could be of some value. Obviously, everything that I say is not financial or investment advice. This is purely for entertainment purposes. And one of the things that's so important for me that I found is when to invest. That's also important. Not just what to invest, but when to invest. And I'm not really referring to about timing the market. I'm referring to more about your financial journey, where you're at the present moment. So if you're in debt, if you don't really have any significant savings, that's pretty much where I was. And I had debt, I had little savings, and I thought, well, let me invest this money. I'm doing a responsible thing, right? I'm investing, I'm not spending my savings, and those investments will yield big profits, and then I'll be able to pay off my debt and I'll have savings, even bigger savings. So not only will I be debt free, but I'm going to have even bigger savings. This was my mindset. Now that I think about it, that saying rings true. Only invest what you can afford to lose. And when you're in debt and you've got little savings, there's not much that you can afford to lose. That much I can tell you. So what happened with me is that I took my savings and I invested it into an asset that had a track record of providing good returns. So I did that, and we were expecting good news about this asset. It was gonna rocket, and I was gonna finally be debt free. And come to find out, I bought in at the top. I bought the top, which is what most beginner investors do. They buy into this hype, they buy into the narrative, they buy into the news, and they think it's just the price is going to keep going up and up, whereas it had already gone up like 1,000%. I mean, what else was I expecting? Another 1,000%. But that's the kind of rhetoric, that's the kind of narrative that you hear when an asset is at the top, because they want you to buy the top, because there are other people who are selling, and they need buyers when they're selling. So I bought the top, and over the next few months, I watched my portfolio lose 90% of its value. 90%. I think it's safe to say that I wasn't happy about it. I was worried because now I was still in debt, and my savings had dwindled, and my investment had dwindled. So I was not in a good spot. What I should have done is use that savings a portion of it, not everything, because remember, I want to be covered for 6 months of essential expenses, which is rental, mortgage, utilities, and food. Those are the three main expenses for survival. So I want to have at least 6 months of those covered. Anything remaining goes towards the debt. I want to decrease my debt as much as possible. And the only thing that is guaranteed is debt that's outstanding that you have to pay. Income, profits from investments is not guaranteed. That's been proven to me many times. So that's the route that I would have taken, is pay off my debt with the savings that I've got while ensuring that I've got 6 months worth of expenses. And once I've paid off my debt, build up my savings even more, and then only take a portion of that savings, the amount that I can afford to lose, is what would go into investments. So that way, if anything happens with the investment, so be it. I can afford to lose it. That's what that saying actually means, and it needs to ring true. It needs that's how your life needs to be structured. It's what if that does happen? What if you lose everything? Are you gonna be okay? So that's how I was looking at it. Excuse me. Oh, I got a hair in my mouth. And from there on, I learned. I luckily for me, I didn't sell the asset when it tanked. It recovered. So currently, I'm in a profit with that asset, but I'm still not selling. It's not like it's a significant profit. It's like I've just managed to, I've broken past break even, and it's gone up a bit, but it's nowhere where I want it to be. So I'm just holding out, and I've realized that investing in most cases is a patience game. It's not going to happen over a few weeks or a few months. I've been invested in this particular asset for 7 years now, 6, 7 years, yeah. And I'm still waiting for it to really reach that level where I want it to, where it's shown that it can go. So that's where I'm at with that investment. I was fortunate that I didn't sell. At least I bought the top, but I didn't sell the bottom. At least I didn't do that, because that just would have been a double whammy. So I learned through those mistakes not to sell the bottom. And that's what most investors do. They buy the top and they sell the bottom. What happens when the price is crashing? There's just more bad news that's coming out. And that's the narrative that's being fed, because you think that it's just going to keep going down and down and down. With all this news that's coming out, the price is going to be dragged down. And when that news cycle is like really at its peak and they're really trying to drive that point home, that seems to me like that's been the bottom. That's usually been the bottom. And then that's where most investors sell. Luckily, fortunately for me, I didn't. And then what happens inversely, when the price is going up, they're all bullish. They're all saying it's just going to keep going up and up and up. And that's the top usually. But when we're in that, it's easy to talk about it now. When we're kind of zoomed out and we're looking, we're just talking about it. But when you're in that situation and everything is euphoric, it's like great, everybody's talking positively, it's so difficult to kind of zoom out of that and think back to what I just said now and say to yourself, well, could this be the top? I know that usually when there's big hype and everything is going great and you see these green candles on the charts and it's just one after the other, like this is not going to stop. It's going to keep going. It's difficult to take yourself out of that situation and to think, you know what, this could be the top. And the same thing when it goes down, just you see a red candles going down and there's so much bad news. It's like, this is just going to keep tanking and tanking. And it's like you think, well, before the price goes even lower, and it's probably going to take years and years for it to recover, let me get out now. And then you sell, and then the price just starts to reverse and starts going up. That's how it usually is. That's how it is. It's all psychological. So that mindset, that mentality didn't work for me. I get investing while I was in debt. So I paid off my debts, built up my savings, took a portion of my savings and I put it into investment. And with that investment where I was in a negative, now I'm in a positive, but I'm still patient and I'm looking into other investments as well that I found. Let's check this article out. I haven't read it since I wrote it last time. When was that? August last year. So let's see what I wrote. Beginner investors are looking for a way to grow their money, but many are uncertain about what investments to make. Sure, the one that provides the highest return and the lowest risk should be the go-to answer. But does that even exist? There is no single investment I've found that's exempt from risk, but I found 3 that I feel to be the safest. Okay, so this is the one that I'm looking into at the moment. Real estate is the first one. To me, the best kind of real estate is the one that I can rent, right? If I'm just living in a house, it's a residential place and I'm not letting out any of the rooms, not letting out the house, then it's costing me. Whereas an apartment, I let it out, especially if I'm letting it out per overnight. So on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to having a tenant for a long-term period, I'm going to make more money. Sure, that's going to be more work, but I'm going to make more money from it. I'm more of a fan of renting on a daily basis than on a monthly basis to one tenant because I can generate a high rental income. But to rent on a daily basis, it's necessary to have an apartment that's in a great location. I don't consider residential property to be a great investment unless a part of it is rented because of the reasons that I mentioned. It's just costing you. There's insurance, water and lights and so forth. All of these things are actually what should be added on top of the house's purchase price when you're selling. So when you sell an asset, in this example, a residential home, and you want to determine how much profit did you actually make on this place. Well, it's not just the selling price minus the buying price. Remember, you incurred all these expenses to run this home, to bring it to a point where you can sell it. So insurance, water, electricity, rates and taxes, all of these things are expenses you incurred to eventually get to a point where you could sell it. So those things should be added on top of the buying price to get the true profit of the sale of the home. Eventually, when the residential property is sold, the profit isn't the selling price minus the buying price. Oh, okay. Now, just what I just said now, the owner has to factor in all the costs such as water and electricity, rates, taxes, repairs, and others, which should be added to the buying price to obtain the true profit. That's because the owner had to incur all those expenses to get to the point when the property was able to be sold. Sure, having a tenant also brings along its own headaches. The tenant can pay for the first month and then decide to stop paying. You then have to go through a legal process to evict them. Your repairs and maintenance costs are likely to be higher and more frequent with a tenant than in your residential property because you've got someone living in your property who likely won't take care of the place the way you would. That's just one of the risks that when you rent out, they don't care about that place. It's not theirs. So especially it's not really limited to age, but usually the youngsters, when they have a party, it's like they go crazy and they drink and they just start bashing stuff. It's like some kind of thrill for them, and there's like no remorse. Well, in the moment, and there isn't because they think it's fun. They don't care. It's not their stuff. The ideal situation that I want to be in is my rental property generating a large enough income to pay for my residential property. That is possible if I rent out on a daily basis. This rental method is more lucrative than having a monthly tenant, but it requires a more active approach, unless the owner delegates the task to a property rental agency. So I'm looking at an apartment that's in a very good location. It's quite expensive, but the rental that I could possibly get on a monthly basis if I had a tenant on a long-term basis is about $1,000, maybe $1,200, right? Which is not bad. You stick him in there and he don't really have a lot of responsibility unless there's something breaks, but this is a new apartment, so nothing should break. But if it does, okay, well, that's, you take care of it, but it's not like you're there on a daily basis changing the sheets. So there's that option. The other option is on a daily basis, which has a potential of generating a daily income of $70. So in a month, that's $2,100. So double than what I would get if I had a tenant for on a long-term lease. But that obviously means that I need to send somebody over there to give them the keys when they arrive. I need somebody to change the sheets. I need somebody to clean more frequently. I need somebody to attend to queries and all kinds of things. So there's that cost that I need to factor in as well. But still, even going into summer when the rates go up to $80 and even $100 a night, you're talking $2,500, maybe $3,000 that I could generate in a month. So it's just that work and income that you kind of need to balance, because there's more work when it becomes active as opposed to more passive income when you've got a long-term lease tenant. So those are the two options, and I'm prepared to put in the work. So I'm leaning more towards the rental on a daily basis. S&P 500. This is the second safest what did I do? Oh man, hopefully that article was showing the entire time. It looks like it was, I hope. Wonder if it was, because now I saw on my screen it wasn't. But anyway, let's continue. S&P 500. S&P 500 is an index that tracks the 500 biggest companies listed on the United States exchanges. Instead of focusing on individual stocks, which are risky, I decided to opt for a safer option. Why is the S&P 500 safer than individual stock? Having an investment in individual stock exposes an investor to the risk of the stock eventually being valued at zero, right? Any stock can go to zero. Remember Enron, right? Investing in a fund that tracks the S&P 500 helps the investor to diversify, which is crucial in investments. The chances that all of the 500 biggest companies will go out of business are slim. There's a chance, but a much smaller one than one company going bankrupt. Right? So when you invest in this, you invest in an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund. You can't invest directly into an index. So you invest in an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. So that investment basically means you're investing into the 500 biggest companies. And the chances that all of them are going to go out of business and that your investment will be valued at zero, I mean, the chances are very, very slim. Obviously, there's always a chance, but the chances are very, very slim. It's a much smaller chance than if you just had to put all of your money into one stock. Okay, let's carry on. Since the S&P 500 is an index, an investor cannot invest in it directly. The way to do it is through a broker who offers an exchange-traded fund, ETF, that tracks the S&P 500. When investing with a broker, it's important to ensure that they have a good reputation, a long track record of providing satisfactory services, they provide great returns, and have low fees. The fees associated with ETFs is called an expense ratio. That's the total cost to manage it. And this is something that most people absolutely forget, especially beginner investors when they want to invest in an asset, even if it's the stock market, the S&P 500. The first thing that they ask is, what returns am I going to get? And sure, that is absolutely important. The percentage returns are crucial to know. But what's even more important to know is all of the expenses that come along with managing that fund, managing that investment. And these can be significant because most people, if they invest in the S&P 500, they think they're going to get 10 or 11% on average. And at the end, they only end up getting 6 or 7, because the expense ratio, which is all of the expenses associated with managing this fund, are extravagant, they're significant, and that decreases their profits. And this is one of the things that most beginner investors don't focus on. They just think about the returns, but also look at the expenses, because that affects your overall profit. It can decrease your profit significantly if you choose a broker that has high fees. And that's extremely important to remember, to look at, and to pay attention. Ask about the fees, because they could drag your profits down significantly. Let's get back to the article. So the fee is the component that most beginner investors overlook. They get starry-eyed at the returns and fail to question the elements that can reduce their returns. The S&P 500 has historically provided a 10% annual returns on average. Some years it's more and some years it's less. But being with a broker who offers high fees can significantly reduce that earning potential. So that's pretty much what I said now. I actually like the sentence that I wrote here. This paragraph. The fee is the component most beginner investors overlook. They get starry-eyed at the returns and fail to question the elements that can reduce their returns. The S&P 500 has historically provided 10% annual returns on average. Some years it's more and some years it's less. But being with a broker who offers high fees can significantly reduce that earning potential. I like that. Then the third and most important investment you can make is in yourself, because it all begins with yourself. You know, when I crashed and burned financially, I had only myself to blame, first of all. And I started learning. I started learning because even though I had 2 finance degrees, I'd owned a business just before becoming homeless. I had 10 years work experience, and yet there I was at the age of 32, I was homeless, which was just crazy. So that just showed me that university education didn't really help me in life. Only once I started reading books about personal finance, listening to podcasts, watching videos, seeing what rich people did, that's how I learned about personal finance, of getting out of debt, living below my means, living the minimalist lifestyle, stopping all debts, taking out more debts, that's what I mean, paying off the current debts so that it's reduced to zero, and then saving up money. So that was an amazing investment, because it all starts with me, it all ends with me. So that investment that I made in constant learning, continuous learning, and I'm still learning, and even going through these articles and talking about it helps me to learn. So let's see what I wrote about yourself being one of the best and safest investments. There's no better investment that you can make than in yourself. I'm constantly looking for ways to better myself, and sometimes that means spending money on a coach. When I became homeless after several consecutive financial mistakes, I admitted to myself that I was the problem. That was the best thing I ever did. Doing that made me realize that if I was the reason for my failure, then I could be the reason for my success. And that's important to realize, because, and really admit to yourself. And pretty much everybody knows that, but they just they don't like hearing that. They don't like applying that to their life, because it means they have to take responsibility for their life. That's really what it's about. So they just want to keep blaming others, the government, their bosses, and their spouses, and whoever else, but they don't want to take responsibility. So once they really accept that they were responsible for their failure, that's when they realize that it's completely within their control. They've got the power to change their situation and create their own success. And when they adopt that mindset, first of all, they're not going to blame anyone. They're just going to keep looking at themselves. And when things go wrong during their process of improvement, they're going to think, how can I improve myself? Instead of wasting time on blaming others. Instead of being a know-it-all, I became a learn-it-all. Oh, jeez. did that help me in life? I could have had an ego and said, you know what, I've got 2 degrees. I've had a business. I've got 10 years work experience. I know it all. This is just an unfortunate situation that I became homeless. Would that have helped me to turn my situation around? No, absolutely not. It wouldn't have helped me at all. What helped me to change my situation around was admitting to myself that I know nothing, that the reason that I'm in that situation is because I made these mistakes and I need to act differently in order to get different results. So instead of thinking I know it all, I became a learn it all. Okay, so let's check out what I said. That led me down a path of seeking knowledge. I knew that it was a lack of knowledge that left my finances in shambles, so I had to have knowledge about money management. I heard a rich man say, if you want to solve your problems, you got to learn. That's exactly what I did. That was Jim Rohn. That's the great motivational speaker who was Tony Robbins' mentor. He said, it might not have been those exact words, but to that effect. Okay, so I read books, attended seminars, and spoke to successful people with the intention of gaining more knowledge and implementing it to mimic rich people's results. So if you want the same results as other people, do what they did. That knowledge helped me to pay off $40,000 of debt and eventually save up to $50,000. I'm now working towards saving up $1 million. One of the biggest obstacles preventing people from reinventing themselves is the ego. Especially with people who are 40 and up, they think they know it all. And then when you try to help them out as a younger person, even though you're in a better financial situation than them, they don't want to. They don't want to listen. They just really don't want to listen. They think it's kind of degrading for them to take your advice and for you to tell them, what's best. No, they don't want that. It hurts their ego. They don't want to admit to themselves that their poor choices led them to their financial rut. Acknowledging that truth was my turning point. Had I not done it, I would still be blaming my teachers, the government, ex-bosses, and everyone else but myself. It's the person in the mirror who's screwing up your finances. It's the person in the mirror who's screwing up your finances. That's who it is. I know it's not easy to admit. I think it was easier for me to admit because I had hit rock bottom. I had like nothing to lose. I had no ego. I stopped caring about what others thought of me. I didn't care. I was like, yeah, it was all me. It was I'm 100% responsible. So in my case, it was a lot easier than somebody who's kind of still coasting along, thinking that they're okay, but they're not okay. They're up to their eyeballs in debt. And since that's the case, then the same person can fix everything. That's really something very powerful. It's empowering, it's liberating to know that it's within your control, to really accept that fact. Because when you accept it, that's when you start looking for answers. That's when you ask yourself, how do I get out of this mess? As opposed to, oh, poor me, look what's happened to me, feel sorry for me. Some of the actions that I took included public speaking classes to improve my communication and confidence. Oh man, was that valuable. Trust me, you want to be able to speak in front of people and communicate in an effective manner. And that's an ongoing process. I've been doing it for probably like 7-8 years. I would consider myself average at best. That's a lifetime commitment. Other things are speaking to random strangers on the street to step out of my shell. It's just kind of squashing that ego, doing things that I'm scared of. Frequenting the gym to get myself into a good physical shape so that I'm healthy and I sleep well, and striving to generate several streams of income. Oh, okay. I think we covered a pretty important aspect of personal finance. Yeah, I mentioned real estate, S&P 500, and then yourself as one of the safest and best investments that you can make. That was for me. It might not be for you. I don't know. That's up to you to decide. You do what you want. Those are the things that worked for me. And yeah, I think that now that I think about it, that ego topic, I'm probably going to discuss it tomorrow. That's going to be tomorrow's live stream because that's really holding people back. And so I'll talk about that tomorrow, 7 a.m. I'll try and make it Eastern Standard Time. I should be able to do it tomorrow, 7 a.m. Otherwise, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. I will catch you tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you then. Bye bye.